5 things to say that instantly raise your value. Have you ever said something in a moment that made someone lean in a little closer, that made them see you differently, not just as someone attractive, but as someone unforgettable? In every conversation, you have a chance to raise your value, not by pretending to be someone else, but by learning how to express the most powerful parts of who you already are. This isn't about playing games or chasing attention. It's about unlocking the kind of energy that makes people feel something real when they're around you. If you've ever wanted to know what to say to leave a lasting impression, to connect deeply, and to speak in a way that sets you apart from the noise, then this video is your moment. Because today, we're not just talking about words. We're talking about presence, purpose, and power. Stay with me until the end, and you'll walk away with 5 transformative things you can say that don't just raise your value, they reveal it. Let's get into it. The first keynote, self-respect is magnetic, is one of the most powerful concepts in relationships. Yet it's often misunderstood. Many people confuse self-respect with being hard to get or cold, but in reality it's the opposite. Self-respect is warm, grounded, and deeply attractive because it speaks to the energy of someone who knows their worth and doesn't have to perform for validation. When you interact from a place of self-respect, you send a silent but strong message. I like you, but I don't need you to like me in order to feel good about myself. That energy creates space. It gives the other person permission to show up fully, without fear of being smothered or pressured. When someone feels that you want them but don't need them, they naturally lean in. Your independence becomes alluring. Think about the most magnetic people you've met. They're not the ones who try to prove how much they care right away. They're the ones who are kind but intentional. They're generous with their time, but only when it aligns with their values. They're open but not available to just anyone. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect in motion. It means they've done the work to know what they want, what they deserve, and what they're no longer willing to settle for. And when you speak from that place, the words you say carry weight. That doesn't work for me becomes one of the most attractive sentences you can say, not because it's rejecting, but because it's rooted in clarity. People respect what you respect. If you constantly overextend, apologize for having needs, or agree just to avoid conflict, what you're silently communicating is that your needs are optional. But the moment you start treating your time, your energy, your space, and your heart like they matter, others start doing the same. That shift begins with language. The words you use in conversations reveal what you believe about yourself. Saying, I'd love to, but that time doesn't work for me, instead of, sorry, I'm just so busy, changes everything. One is grounded in boundaries. The other is soaked in guilt. When you practice this kind of respectful, honest communication, you don't push people away. You attract the right ones to come closer. This is especially important in dating and relationships, where the fear of being too much or too picky often makes people silence their truth. But what if expressing your truth was the very thing that made you more desirable? What if being upfront about your needs wasn't a risk, but the filter that separated who was aligned with you and who wasn't? That's the power of self-respect. It's not about being controlling or it's about showing up fully and saying, this is who I am and how I move. And if that aligns with you, amazing. If not, I'll still be good. That level of confidence is rare. And in a world full of people trying to impress, it stands out in the best way. Self-respect also sets the tone for how you'll be treated long term. The patterns you allow in the beginning become the blueprint for the relationship. If you communicate your standards with grace from the start, you're setting up an environment where mutual respect becomes the norm. You're not waiting for someone to validate your worth. You've already validated it within yourself. And that inner security is exactly what makes someone because while anyone can chase, flatter, or impress, it takes real power to stand calmly in your truth and let the right person recognize your value on their own. That's magnetic, that's rare, and that's exactly the energy that turns a moment of attraction into lasting connection. Curiosity creates connection because it tells someone, I see you, and I want to know more. In a world full of surface-level conversations and people distracted by their phones or their image, real curiosity is rare, and when it shows up, it cuts through the noise like a beam of light. Most people are so used to trying to prove themselves that they forget how powerful it is to simply be interested. When you ask someone thoughtful questions, when you genuinely want to understand what drives them, what makes them light up, what they've been through, and how they see the world, you're not just having a conversation. You're creating emotional intimacy, the kind that makes people feel seen, understood, and safe to be themselves. And that feeling, that's what makes people want to stay. Curiosity isn't about interrogation. It's not about asking one question after another so you can check a box. It's about listening, not just to the words someone says, but to the space between them. When someone says they love what they do, ask them what led them to that path. When they mention a childhood memory, ask how it shaped them. When they talk about a goal, ask what it means to them emotionally. These small moments build connection that most people never experience in casual dating or even in long-term relationships. That's because we've been taught to focus on being interesting. But when you flip the switch and focus on being interested, something beautiful happens. The person in front of you starts to open up, and so do you. People love talking to those who make them feel alive. And feeling alive often comes from expressing the deeper parts of ourselves, the dreams we rarely voice, the passions we've kept buried, the parts of our story we don't always share. When someone taps into those places, we feel a bond that goes beyond surface attraction. And that bond is built through curiosity, not fake curiosity, not let me ask this so you'll like me curiosity, but real, intentional, heart-centered curiosity. The kind that listens without judgment. The kind that makes space for someone's truth, even if it's different from yours. The kind that doesn't need to fix, solve, or control just to understand. There's a reason most first dates feel flat or forgettable. It's not that people aren't good enough. It's that the questions stay shallow, the energy stays guarded, and the conversation never breaks the surface. But one deep question, asked with presence and warmth, can change the entire tone. It can turn an ordinary moment into a memory, and the person who asked that question, they suddenly become unforgettable. Because you don't remember people by what they wore or how charming they were. You remember how they made you feel. And when someone feels truly seen, they never forget the person who gave them that experience. Curiosity also communicates confidence. It shows you're not just waiting to be chosen, you're actively choosing. You're deciding who you connect with based on something deeper than looks or status. And that energy says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to discover if there's real compatibility. That's powerful. Because when someone feels that you're not blindly impressed but deeply engaged, they know you have standards. They know you're paying attention, and that makes your attention more valuable. The most attractive people in the world aren't the loudest or the most polished. They're the ones who make you feel important, heard, and valued. They're the ones who ask the kind of questions that no one else does. And they ask them not to impress, but because they care. That care, that curiosity, that emotional presence, it creates a connection that no physical attraction can replace. When you bring that into your relationships, you don't just raise your value, you raise the quality of every connection you create. Gratitude without attachment is one of the most emotionally intelligent and attractive qualities you can bring into a relationship. It shows you appreciate the present moment, the effort someone gives you, or the time they share with you without expecting anything in return. That kind of grounded, secure energy is magnetic because it communicates that your self-worth isn't dependent on someone else's actions or responses. You're grateful because you're whole, not because you're hoping that your gratitude will earn you love or approval. That distinction changes everything. When you thank someone sincerely but don't chase them afterward, you send a powerful message. I see your effort, I value your presence, but I don't need you to validate my experience. That mindset is rare. Most people give with strings attached. They compliment with the hope of receiving one back. They express gratitude, but deep down they're hoping to deepen the bond or get something more. There's nothing wrong with wanting connection, but when that desire is tied to outcome, it creates emotional pressure, and pressure breaks attraction. On the other hand, when someone can feel your appreciation without feeling your need, it puts them at ease. It allows them to relax into your presence instead of feeling like they have to perform or deliver something in return. Gratitude without attachment also reflects emotional maturity. It shows that you recognize and celebrate the good, but you don't make it your identity. You're not overly impressed by small efforts, nor are you bitter when someone doesn't meet your expectations. You're steady. You can enjoy the moment, express warmth, and still keep your balance. That creates a sense of mystery and depth around you. People sense that you're emotionally full, that you're capable of giving without losing yourself. And that's rare because most people give to get. They overextend, they sacrifice, they bend just to be liked. But then they feel disappointed when the other person doesn't reciprocate in the exact same way. That pattern drains your energy and lowers your value. Gratitude without attachment is the antidote. It's the quiet confidence that says, I give from overflow, not emptiness. This quality doesn't just make you more attractive, it protects your heart. Because when you can appreciate someone without needing them to validate you, you're no longer emotionally fragile. You're free. You can say, thank you for tonight. I really enjoyed our time, and still walk away knowing your joy came from being present, not from clinging to a specific outcome. And when you live that way, you become incredibly powerful. You stop chasing people. You stop overthinking texts. You stop analyzing every interaction for signs of interest or rejection. Instead, you start living in alignment. You give what feels good to give. You receive with grace, and you move forward without desperation or drama. The truth is, the most magnetic energy in the world is the combination of warmth and detachment. Warmth says, I'm open to connection. Detachment says, but I'll be okay regardless. That balance creates emotional safety. It makes people want to get closer to you, not because you need them, but because your presence feels light, authentic, and free from expectation. When someone senses that your appreciation is real, but your self-worth is not on the line, they trust you more. They see you as grounded. And grounded people are unforgettable. They don't manipulate. They don't perform, they don't over-explain, they just live, give, and let go. That kind of energy doesn't just raise your value, it redefines it. It shows others what it means to love without losing yourself, and to be grateful without being dependent. Playful honesty builds tension because it invites connection while keeping your power. It's the ability to say something real, something true, but to deliver it in a way that's light, charming, and self-assured. Most people either lean too far into brutal honesty and push others away, or they hold back their truth completely and end up people-pleasing. But when you speak with playful honesty, you strike the perfect balance. You're being authentic without being aggressive. You're showing your real personality without overwhelming the other person. That balance creates a spark, a dynamic energy that builds attraction through both vulnerability and control. When you say something like, I'm not great at texting, but I'm really good in person, you're being honest about your boundaries while keeping it fun. It doesn't come across as defensive or closed off. It comes across as someone who knows themselves, owns it, and invites others into that self-awareness. That kind of self-expression is rare and refreshing. It tells the other person, you're not trying to be perfect, you're not performing, you're real, and that realness is attractive because it's rare. Playful honesty also builds tension because it introduces contrast. When you're open, but also light. When you tease, but also tell the truth. When you reveal something personal, but in a way that feels effortless. That contrast keeps people curious. It makes them want to know more. It builds a rhythm in the conversation that keeps things alive. Without it, the interaction becomes flat, predictable, and safe, but not in a good way. Safety without edge leads to boredom, but playful honesty introduces just enough unpredictability to keep the energy moving forward without losing warmth. This type of communication shows a high level of emotional intelligence. You're not being sarcastic or passive-aggressive. You're being present, aware of your truth, and confident enough to share it without fearing how it will be received. That confidence, paired with your ability to stay playful, shows emotional stability. It shows that you're not saying things just to test someone or to see how they'll react. You're sharing your truth because you're comfortable with who you are. You're not afraid to show up fully, even if it means revealing something a little messy, a little flawed, or a little different. That kind of vulnerability, delivered with charm, is what makes people lean in. It also sets the tone for honest communication in the relationship. When you're playful and real, it gives the other person permission to do the same. It lowers their guard. They realize they don't have to pretend or posture around you. They can just be themselves. And the more they feel that safety, the more the connection deepens. It becomes easier to share fears, desires, and dreams because the pressure is gone. You've created an emotional space that's open and alive instead of rigid or forced. Playful honesty also keeps attraction alive long term. In any relationship, there's a natural tendency for things to settle into routine. But when you keep that edge, when you're honest in how you feel, but you still flirt, tease, and laugh, you keep the fire burning. You remind the other person that emotional depth doesn't have to be heavy, that truth can be sexy, that openness can still be fun, and that love doesn't have to be boring to be safe. Most people either try too hard to please, or they become so guarded they don't let anyone in. But when you speak with playful honesty, you do something powerful. You let people see the real you without giving away your power. You allow truth to be beautiful instead of intimidating. You make people feel good in your presence, not because you're saying what they want to hear, but because you're saying what's real and saying it with grace. That's the kind of communication that raises your value instantly and leaves a lasting impression. Future-focused comments create vision, and vision creates value. When you speak from a place of purpose, direction, and personal growth, you're not just sharing facts, you're inviting someone to imagine a future with you. Not because you're trying to force a relationship, but because you're living a life so rich and full that being around you naturally makes someone want to be part of it. Most people talk about the past or stay stuck in the present. But when you speak about your future, what you're building, learning, dreaming of, you show that your life is moving forward. That energy is magnetic because it shows momentum, and momentum is attractive. People are drawn to what is in motion. When you talk about the things you're working on with passion and clarity, you light up. And when you light up, you shine. That shine doesn't just come from talking big or pretending to have it all figured out. It comes from being genuinely excited about where you're headed. When someone hears you speak about your goals, your creative ideas, your next chapter with confidence and belief, they begin to see the version of you that's growing, not just the one that's standing in front of them. They feel inspired, not just impressed. And that feeling creates emotional depth. Being future-focused also signals emotional security. It shows that your identity isn't based on the past. You're not living from your wounds, your regrets, or your limitations. You're living from your vision. And people who live that way carry a different kind of energy. They're not stuck in what if, they're living in what's next. And when you meet someone who speaks like that, you can't help but want to know where they're going. Because somewhere deep down, we all want to be part of something meaningful. We all want to feel that the person we're connecting with is not just looking for a relationship, they're building a life. And if they choose you, it means they want to share that life, not fill a void. Future-focused communication also shows high standards. When you talk about where you're going, you automatically filter the kind of people who stick around. You attract those who align with your energy and repel those who aren't ready for that kind of clarity. Saying something like, "I'm really focused on my next chapter right now. It's been exciting and demanding in the best way," sends a clear message. I'm available for connection, but I won't pause my purpose for it. That's not being distant. That's being powerful. It shows that while you're open to love, you're not waiting for it to complete you. This kind of energy is contagious. When you live with vision and speak from that place, you unconsciously challenge the other person to rise. You raise the emotional frequency of the interaction. You make people want to level up, not to impress you, but because your passion ignites something in them. And passion is what creates lasting attraction, not perfection, not beauty, passion. Even simple statements like, "I'm learning how to be more patient with myself," or "I've been exploring something totally new and it's been exciting," are powerful because they speak to who you're becoming. And the truth is, who you're becoming is far more interesting than who you've been. Most people try to prove their worth by listing accomplishments or traits, but when you let someone feel your momentum, they sense your value without needing proof. They feel it. They see it in your excitement, your curiosity, your drive. You're not trying to impress. You're just living forward. And that forward energy creates a pull that words alone can't replicate. It's not about saying you're valuable. It's about living in a way that makes it obvious.